The phone slipped from Michael's trembling hands, crashing to the hospital floor as the doctor's words echoed in his mind. "I'm sorry, Mr. Collins. We did everything we could." In that moment, his world collapsed. Sarah, his wife of 12 years, was gone, taken by a sudden aneurysm that no one saw coming. As he sank to his knees, a small voice cut through his fog of despair. "Daddy? Where's Mommy?" 6-year-old Emma stood in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide with confusion and fear. How could he possibly explain to his daughter that her mother would never come home again? If you're feeling the weight of this moment already, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us of the resilience of the human spirit, even in our darkest hours. The days that followed passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, condolence calls, and sleepless nights. Michael moved through it all like a ghost, functioning just enough to keep up appearances. But inside, he was hollow. Each morning, he'd wake up reaching for Sarah's warmth beside him, only to find cold, empty sheets. The crushing reality would hit him anew each day. Emma, meanwhile, had stopped speaking almost entirely. Her kindergarten teacher called with concerns about her withdrawal from friends and activities. At home, she would sit for hours by the window, as if waiting for her mother to appear in the driveway. The stuffed rabbit, a gift from Sarah on Emma's last birthday, never left her side. Michael knew he needed to be strong for his daughter, but how could he help her through her grief when he could barely manage his own? The parenting books on their shelves offered no chapter on how to raise your child after your spouse dies. Sarah had always been the one who knew what to do, who could soothe Emma's fears with just the right words or gestures. Without her, he felt utterly lost. One night, about 3 weeks after the funeral, Michael woke to the sound of soft crying. He found Emma sitting on the floor of Sarah's closet, surrounded by her mother's clothes, tears streaming down her face as she clutched one of Sarah's sweaters. "I can't remember how she smells anymore, Daddy," Emma whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm forgetting her." Something inside Michael broke open. He sat down beside his daughter, pulling her into his arms, and for the first time since Sarah's death, he allowed himself to cry with Emma. They sat there together, father and daughter, sharing their grief in the dim light of the closet. "We won't forget her," Michael promised, his voice hoarse. "I'll tell you stories about Mommy every day. We'll look at pictures. We'll remember together." That night marked a turning point. Michael realized that in trying to shield Emma from his pain, he'd been denying them both the chance to heal. Sarah wouldn't want either of them to disappear into grief. She'd want them to find a way forward, together. The next morning, Michael called his boss and requested a leave of absence. Then he sat down with Emma at the kitchen table, Sarah's favorite spot in the house, and made a plan. "We're going to make a memory book," he told Emma. "With all our favorite stories about Mommy." Emma's eyes lit up for the first time in weeks. "Can I draw the pictures?" "You can draw all the pictures," Michael promised. They started small. Each evening, they would share one memory of Sarah, writing it down in a journal and adding Emma's illustrations. Some nights were harder than others. Sometimes the memories would trigger fresh waves of grief, and they would hold each other through the tears. But gradually, the stories began to bring smiles along with the sadness. Michael remembered how Sarah had once tried to bake a birthday cake for him and accidentally used salt instead of sugar, resulting in what she'd laughingly called the world's first dessert that could melt ice on the driveway. Emma recalled how her mother would make up elaborate stories about her stuffed animals, giving each one a distinct voice and personality. As the memory book grew, so did their ability to talk about Sarah without being overwhelmed by loss. The pain didn't disappear. Michael knew it never would completely, but it began to make room for other emotions, gratitude for the time they'd had with her, joy in the memories they shared, and even laughter at the quirks that had made Sarah uniquely herself. One evening, as Michael was tucking Emma into bed, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy, do you think Mommy can see our memory book from heaven?" Michael paused, considering his words carefully. I think Mommy knows exactly what we're doing, he said finally. And I think she's very proud of how brave you've been. Emma nodded solemnly. I think she's proud of you too, Daddy. You make really good pancakes now. Almost as good as Mommy's. Michael laughed, surprised by the sound of it in his throat. Almost as good, huh? I'll take that as a win. As the months passed, Michael and Emma established new routines. They joined a support group for families who had lost loved ones, where Emma met other children who understood what she was going through. Michael connected with other single parents who offered practical advice and, occasionally, much-needed adult conversation. There were still difficult days. Emma's first day of first grade, when Sarah should have been there taking pictures and fussing over her daughter's outfit. The first Christmas without her, when they had to decide which traditions to keep and which were too painful. Sarah's birthday, which they marked by releasing lanterns into the night sky, each carrying a message written to her. But there were good days too, days when Michael would catch himself laughing without feeling guilty afterward, or when he'd watch Emma playing with friends and see her mother's smile lighting up her face. On the one-year anniversary of Sarah's death, Michael took the day off work, and they drove to Sarah's favorite spot, a small lake where they had often picnicked as a family. They brought the memory book, now filled with stories and drawings, and sat by the water's edge. I miss her every day, Michael admitted, his arm around Emma's shoulders. Me too, Emma said. But I'm glad I have you, Daddy. Michael looked down at his daughter, seeing both Sarah's features and his own reflected in her face. In that moment, he realized something profound. Sarah lived on in Emma, not just in her appearance, but in her spirit, her kindness, her determination. And in raising their daughter, Michael could honor Sarah's memory in the most meaningful way possible. That evening, as they drove home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat. Michael glanced at her in the rearview mirror, peaceful in slumber, still clutching the well-worn stuffed rabbit. He thought about how far they had come in a year, how they had learned to carry their grief without being crushed by it. He had lost his wife, but in his daughter, he had found not just strength but purpose. Sarah had given him the greatest gift in Emma, and through her, a reason to keep moving forward. They would always miss Sarah, always feel the space she had left behind. But they would also live fully, love deeply, and make her proud. 2 years after Sarah's death, Michael stood in the doorway of Emma's room, watching as she carefully arranged photos on a poster board for her school project titled, My Hero. The largest photo showed Sarah, laughing with her head thrown back, her arms around a younger Emma. Do you need any help? Michael asked. Emma shook her head, concentration evident on her face as she applied glue to the back of another photo. I'm almost done. Want to see? Michael sat beside her on the floor, taking in the collage of images and the carefully printed words beneath them. My mom was a hero because she taught me to be brave and kind. Even though she's in heaven now, she's still my hero, and so is my dad. Michael's throat tightened. That's beautiful, Em. Ms. Peterson said we could write about any hero, real or made up, Emma explained. But I wanted to write about someone real. Mom was real, and she was really brave, wasn't she? She was the bravest person I've ever known, Michael agreed. And you're just like her. Emma beamed at the comparison. Dad? I was thinking maybe we could start a new tradition. What kind of tradition? On Mom's birthday, instead of just sending up lanterns, maybe we could do something to help other people? Mom always liked helping people. Michael felt a surge of pride so intense it nearly took his breath away. That's a wonderful idea. What were you thinking? Maybe we could volunteer at the hospital? Or collect toys for kids who are sick? I think Mom would love that, Michael said, pulling Emma into a hug. We'll make it happen. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Michael sat alone in the living room, looking through old photos of Sarah. The pain of her absence was still there, a familiar ache in his chest, but it no longer paralyzed him. Alongside it was gratitude for the years they'd shared, and for the remarkable little girl they had created together. He thought about Emma's project, about her desire to honor her mother by helping others. In her own way, at just 8 years old, she was finding meaning in their loss. She was transforming grief into compassion, absence into purpose. Michael had spent the first year after Sarah's death just trying to survive, to keep himself and Emma afloat in an ocean of grief. The second year had been about learning to live again, to find moments of joy amid the sadness. Now, as they approached the third year, he realized they were doing more than just surviving or living, they were growing, evolving, becoming stronger through their shared experience of loss. He had lost his wife, but in his daughter, he had found not just strength but wisdom. Emma, with her resilient spirit and open heart, had taught him that love doesn't end with death. It transforms, finding new ways to express itself, new paths to follow. As he closed the photo album, Michael made a silent promise to Sarah, to live a life worthy of her love, to raise their daughter with all the courage and compassion she deserved, and to keep Sarah's memory alive not just in stories and pictures, but in the way they chose to live each day. The journey of grief was far from over. There would still be difficult milestones ahead, Emma's graduation, her wedding someday, all the moments when Sarah's absence would be felt most keenly. But Michael no longer feared those moments. He and Emma would face them together, carrying Sarah with them in their hearts. In the quiet of the night, Michael whispered, "Thank you for our daughter, Sarah. She saved me. And through her, you're still saving me every day." 3 years turned into 5, and 5 into 10. Emma grew from a child into a teenager, her resemblance to Sarah growing stronger with each passing year. She inherited her mother's artistic talent, filling sketchbooks with drawings and paintings that captured the world around her with sensitivity and insight. On Emma's 16th birthday, Michael gave her a special gift, Sarah's camera, carefully preserved all these years. "Your mom loved photography," he told Emma as she turned the camera over in her hands, examining it with reverence. "She had an eye for beauty in unexpected places." "I remember," Emma said softly. "She was always taking pictures of random things, raindrops on leaves, shadows on the sidewalk. She believed that life's most precious moments often go unnoticed," Michael explained. "She wanted to capture them, to remind herself and others to pay attention to the small wonders around us." Emma lifted the camera to her eye, focusing on Michael. The shutter clicked, capturing him in a moment of bittersweet remembrance. "Perfect," she said, reviewing the image on the display. "I'm going to take it everywhere." And she did. Emma developed her own passion for photography, seeing the world through a lens that somehow combined her unique perspective with echoes of her mother's vision. She photographed her friends, her school, the changing seasons in their neighborhood. But her favorite subjects were people, capturing expressions, emotions, connections between individuals. For a school photography project, she created a series titled Single Parents, featuring portraits of fathers and mothers raising children on their own. Michael's portrait was the centerpiece. He sat at their kitchen table, surrounded by Emma's childhood drawings, his face reflecting both the weight of responsibility and the depth of his love. The project won a regional arts competition, and when a local newspaper interviewed Emma about her work, she spoke eloquently about the strength she had witnessed in her father and the other single parents she had photographed. "They carry double the burden but somehow find double the love to give," she told the reporter. "My dad taught me that family isn't defined by who's missing, but by who remains and how they choose to love each other through the hardest times." When Michael read the article, tears streamed down his face, not from sadness, but from profound gratitude for the remarkable young woman his daughter had become. As Emma's high school graduation approached, Michael found himself reflecting on the journey they had traveled together. There had been challenges beyond grief, the awkwardness of navigating Emma's adolescence without a mother's guidance, the financial struggles of raising a child on a single income, the loneliness of parenting without a partner to share the triumphs and tribulations. But there had also been joy, growth, and a bond between father and daughter forged in the fire of shared loss. They had learned to lean on each other, to communicate openly, to find humor even in difficult circumstances. They had built a life that honored Sarah's memory while creating new traditions and experiences of their own. On graduation day, as Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma, Michael felt Sarah's presence more strongly than he had in years. He could almost hear her voice, "Look at our girl, Michael. Look what we made." Later that evening, as friends and family gathered at their home to celebrate, Emma pulled Michael aside, handing him a small, wrapped package. "What's this?" he asked, surprised. "Just open it," Emma urged, her eyes bright with excitement. Inside was a leather-bound book. On the cover, embossed in gold, were the words, "The strength we found, our journey." Michael opened it to find a collection of photographs, some taken by Sarah years ago, others by Emma more recently, interspersed with handwritten reflections. It was their story, beautifully documented and lovingly preserved. "I made a copy for myself too," Emma explained. "For when I go to college in the fall. So I can remember where I came from and what you taught me." Michael pulled his daughter into a tight embrace, unable to find words adequate to express what he was feeling. After a moment, he managed to whisper, "Your mother would be so proud of you." "I'm so proud of you." Emma smiled through tears. "We did okay, didn't we, Dad? Even without her." "We did more than okay," Michael assured her. "We honored her by living fully, just as she would have wanted." As Emma prepared to leave for college that autumn, Michael faced a new challenge, learning to live alone for the first time since Sarah's death. The house would be quieter, emptier without Emma's presence. But rather than dreading this new chapter, he found himself approaching it with unexpected peace. Sarah's death had taught him that life could change in an instant, that nothing was guaranteed. But it had also shown him his own capacity for resilience, for adaptation, for finding new purpose even amid profound loss. The night before Emma left, they sat together on the porch swing, a favorite spot for their conversations over the years. "I'm nervous," Emma admitted, leaning her head against his shoulder just as she had done as a little girl. "Not just about college, but about leaving you here alone." "I'll be fine," Michael assured her. "This is exactly as it should be. You're ready to spread your wings, and I'm ready to watch you fly." "But what about you? What will you do?" Michael smiled. "I've been thinking about that. Remember how your mom always wanted to start a support group for families going through medical crises? I think I might finally do that, in her name." Emma's face lit up. "The Sarah Collins Foundation? That sounds perfect." "It's time," Michael said simply. "For years, we needed support. Now maybe we can provide it for others." As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge in the evening sky, Michael reflected on the long journey from that devastating day in the hospital to this moment of quiet contentment on the porch. He had lost his wife, but in his daughter, he had found not just strength but healing. Through loving and raising Emma, he had learned that grief and joy could coexist, that broken hearts could mend without forgetting, that life could be beautiful even after unimaginable loss. Sarah would always be part of them, in Emma's smile, in the values they shared, in the love that had shaped their family. Her absence would always be felt. But Michael had come to understand that absence was not emptiness, it was a space filled with memory, with meaning, with the ongoing presence of love that transcended death itself. As Emma left for college the next day, Michael stood in the driveway, waving until her car disappeared from view. Then he went inside, to the desk where he had already begun drafting plans for the Sarah Collins Foundation. On the desk sat a framed photograph, one of the last taken of Sarah before her death. In it, she was laughing, her arms outstretched as if embracing life itself. Beside it was a more recent photo of Emma, captured in a similar pose, with the same joyful expression. Michael touched both images gently.